Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday to everybody. Today is January 15th, 2021. I want to give a big shout out and a big happy birthday to my little sister, my oldest baby, I call her. She turned 15 today. Happy birthday, baby. So let's jump right into it. It's like I said, it's a happy Friday. We made it. And we got some big sports games and some big sports talk coming up this weekend. Obviously, the elephant in the room, James Harden going to the Nets, teaming up with Kyrie Irving if he decides to stay there, which is its own storyline, or rather if the team decides to keep him there. Also pairing up with Kevin Durant, old teammates from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, we have some big playoff games this weekend for the NFL and some big storylines there. For me, sports is more, I think I said this in a different episode for the people out there, but for me, sports is more than just winning the game. And obviously, the sports centers of the world and ESPN, they do this on purpose, but it's more so about storylines. Because for me, sports, professional sports that is about legacy. Your average high school game is about winning, obviously, and who can score the most points. Average pee-wee game. But for professional sports, all of them have been winners their whole lives. It's more so about creating their legacy and what's going to be left. Trying to be the GOAT, the best there is. Do things that have never been done before. So, like I said, just to jump right into some of the storylines from last week and then now going into this week. Lamar Jackson. The story behind him for the Baltimore Ravens was that he couldn't win a playoff game. They ended up going up against the same team that they lost to last year, the Tennessee Titans, and he came out and won. So now that storyline is over. Can he win a playoff game? But now the new storyline is between the battle of young elite quarterbacks trying to fight for that top 5 spot. He's going up against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills this week, and the story is whoever wins this matchup, even if he plays. For example, if Lamar Jackson loses this matchup but plays better than Josh Allen, it's about the win this time. So whoever wins this is going to the AFC Championship, and they're ultimately fighting for a spot as who's the better quarterback, who's elite. Going into next year and following after this, we know that the new generation of quarterbacks is coming up. Drew Brees is about to retire. Tom Brady's even though Tom Brady's stats are going up, he's 43 years old. Tom Brady's going to retire soon. Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, all the old school cats are on their way out. So now people are fighting for who's the next one to come in. We all know Mahomes. That's a given. Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, Herbert out in Los Angeles is coming up. With Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. All the new quarterbacks, they're on their way up. So if the old heads were to retire, Rodgers and all of them I just named, who's next? Mahomes would probably be number 1. You could probably say Watson maybe as a number 2, debatable. Lamar Jackson as a number 2. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. All these playoff games are going to be indicative of where these players rank up. So that's just one storyline. On the other end of it is Josh Allen. Like we know about Lamar Jackson. He's already an MVP. He's only 24 years old, and he's already done things that no one else has done before. He's the only quarterback ever to rush for two 1,000-yard seasons, and he did it back to back. So, I believe that may not be true. I believe he did it back to back. I know he did it during his MVP season, which was last year. Yeah, because Mahomes won the MVP 2 years ago, and then Jackson last year, and probably Rodgers this year. But we'll talk about that. But on the other side of Lamar Jackson is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, there were there were not high expectations of him going into this year. His rookie year, he really wasn't that good. It was like a mediocre quarterback. Last year, he did better, but it wasn't wasn't anything elite. Everyone just knows him for his strong arm. For those that play Madden, we all know Josh Allen has a 99 throw power. He can throw across the whole entire field. But this year, he started playing like an MVP. People are saying he's third in the MVP race behind Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, and then Josh Allen. So, is this all a fluke? Is this what's next for him? If he loses this game, people won't really remember the season. They'll just say, "Oh, I mean, he came up short." People talk about Mahomes' MVP season because it was elite, but they lost that year, and it wasn't even his fault. He didn't get the ball back in the AFC Championship game versus the Patriots. They ultimately go on to beat the Rams in a horrible Super Bowl. That Super Bowl was garbage, but but it's not really talked about. We say, "Oh, Mahomes is an MVP," but the conversation ends there. No one. Matt Ryan won MVP that year that he got the infamous 28-3 game versus the Patriots and Tom Brady. Matt Ryan won MVP that year. No one talks about Matt Ryan as an elite quarterback. Granted, that was 2016, so it's been some time, but same thing. If Josh Allen was third in the MVP race this year, if he goes and loses in the divisional round this year or this weekend, that's it. The story is over right there. So, that's just one game and two sets of storylines. And like I said, that's for the young quarterbacks. On the other end, on the flip side, we got the old heads. We have the Buccaneers with Tom Brady versus Drew Brees and the Saints. Drew Brees is coming off 8 cracked ribs, and he's 42 years old. And Tom Brady is playing like he's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, and he's 43. Tom Brady's been in the league since 2002. Mind you, 2002. Or maybe even 2001. And this year was the second most passing touchdowns he's done throughout all of those years. And before this year, he already has 2 MVP awards. So think about that. He threw 40 touchdowns this year. The max he's ever thrown was in 2008. He threw 50. That's when he had Randy Moss on his team, and they went 16-0 ultimately to go losing to the 8-8 Giants. Shout out Giants fans. I'm an Eagles fan, so I hate Giants fans, hate Cowboys fans, but I can give them their respect where it's due. So Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. We all know what they're playing for. Drew Brees only has 1 Super Bowl. He fought back when for those that don't know, Drew Brees on the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I don't know how you don't know that. And for those that don't know, Tom Brady's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's not on the New England Patriots anymore. If you didn't already know that, then I don't know what to tell you. But I specifically said that because Drew Brees, he won his first Super Bowl when emotions were high, and they went and basically did their whole season fighting Katrina. That was on their mind, and they wanted to go get a Super Bowl for their city. So, that's the only Super Bowl he's ever had. Drew Brees kind of has a reputation like how Peyton Manning had, as being known as a seasonal quarterback, not a playoff quarterback. A regular season quarterback and not a playoff quarterback. Drew Brees, I didn't know this until maybe a couple weeks ago. Drew Brees has thrown for 5,000 yards like 6, 7, or 8 times. The only other person that's done that has done it twice. Matt Stafford has 2 5,000-yard seasons, and Drew Brees has done it like 6 times. So he's also number 1 in the most passing yards ever. He has like over 80,000 passing yards. Him and Tom Brady are first and second in that. This is actually the first time ever that the two quarterbacks that are ranked number 1 and second for passing yards have ever gone up against each other. So, like I said, there's lots of storylines there. Is Drew Brees going to finally fight and go get his second Super Bowl? He has one of the top 5 defenses in the league, top 5 offense. All the weapons around him are made for him to go get that Super Bowl. But, like I said, he's coming off 8 cracked ribs, and, he has not been throwing like himself. On the other side, we all know maybe not all of us, but everyone arguably knows Tom Brady as the GOAT, greatest of all time. He might not be the most athletic, he might not have the best arm or all the accolades, but he has 6 rings, and in football, it's about getting the chips. So everyone knows that the New England Patriots as a team, as a collective, ruled the NFL for the last 20 years. And the big question was it because of Bill Belichick, the coach, or was it because of Tom Brady, the GOAT? And it's hard to argue it right now because Bill Belichick was really left with college players, Canadian football players. Like a lot of the New England Patriots team opted out because of COVID, and then his quarterback left. So he kind of had to put the pieces together, and I think they still won 6 or 7 games. So, I mean, the New England Patriots fought, but Tom Brady, he went down to Tampa with all-pro receivers, Pro Bowl receivers, Pro Bowl running backs, all-pro running backs, a top 10 defense. I don't know if they ended up finishing top 10 this year, but the year prior, they were a top 10 defense. So it was two sides of a coin, but the argument right now, if you just look at it on black and white, Tom Brady's winning that argument. He can look at himself now and say, I'm the reason we got those 6 chips. If you take me away, they didn't even get to the playoffs. This is the first time since Tom Brady, I think he broke his leg in 2008, and that's when the Patriots didn't get to the Super Bowl, or not Super Bowl, the playoffs, excuse me. This is the first time in 12 years they didn't get to the playoffs. And the last time they didn't was because their quarterback left too. He broke his leg. So ever since like 2003, they've made the playoffs every single year. Maybe even 2002. So Tom Brady's fighting for that 7th ring and that vindication that I am the GOAT. If he gets the 7th ring, it can't even be argued. He left his coach, left his team to come down here, and there's nothing even left to say about that. He did it. But to switch over to storylines, we got to go to that bad man in Green Bay. Shout out Stephen A. Smith. We got to go to that bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is fighting for his place too. Even though Tom Brady's known as the GOAT for his rings, everyone in football, anywhere around the world, looks at Aaron Rodgers as the greatest quarterback that has ever done it as far as talent. He is the most talented quarterback to ever walk the earth. He can make throws and do things that no other quarterback can do. But he hasn't had the help that Tom Brady has had with coaching or with defenses. To give you another stat on that. And by the way, it's not that I research all this stuff. If everyone's like, Dad, you did all this research for this episode, I am just especially football, a sports fanatic, and I soak all these stats up. I hear it once and I can just like regurgitate it. So I heard the other day, this is the first time Aaron Rodgers in his whole entire career, that he's ever had a first round bye. He's 39 years old and has been in the league since 2005. And he already has 2 MVPs. And he already has 1 Super Bowl ring. So knowing that and saying that this is the first time that he's ever had a first round bye, and what that means for people that don't know, that are just first time listeners or not really into sports like that, you get a first round bye when you have the best record in the entire conference. There's 2 conferences in the NFL, the NFC and the AFC. If you are normally, besides this year, it's if you're number 1 and 2, you get a bye. But they switched it this year because of COVID. If you're only the number 1 seed gets a bye. So prior to this year, Aaron Rodgers had never been the number 1 or 2 seed if he didn't get a bye. This is the first year ever he had a number 1 seed. He gets a break, and we'll see how it reacts with him. Since Mahomes has come in, everyone's tried to take that title away from Aaron Rodgers and say that Mahomes is now the most talented / most gifted player to ever strap up the cleats. But Aaron Rodgers heard that, and his team acted like they believed it as well. They drafted a quarterback in the first round last year. Ultimately, Aaron Rodgers' replacement, Jordan Love, and everyone was saying Aaron Rodgers is washed up. They need to get him a backup because he's not playing like how he needs to. And if you look at the stats last year, he didn't even have a bad year. A down year for Aaron Rodgers was a career year for other quarterbacks. But they drafted his backup, and he went into the lab, and he's about to be this year's MVP. I wish I didn't have to say it, but he is. I wanted Mahomes to win, which we'll talk about later. But Aaron Rodgers, he wrapped it up, man. He wrapped it all the way up. So he's coming for that chip too. And actually, who is Green Bay going against? Washington's out now. Green Bay has to be going up against the Rams, yeah. So the Rams, I mean, there's not really that many storylines for the Rams on the other side of them. The Rams weren't supposed to make it this far, but they're very resilient. Everyone knows year in and year out that they have the number one defense because of big man Aaron Donald over there. I hope he gets his third Defensive Player of the Year award. It'll probably go to T.J. Watt, but hope it goes to Aaron Donald. I wonder. I know this is a nerdy thing to say, but I don't know if two people of the same name have ever really won awards like that. If Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Donald win the award, like, is that a first? Yeah, that was nerdy, but yeah, there's not really many storylines over there. I mean, they're not projected to win at all. If they do, that'll be a huge storyline. Their defense is obviously great. The Green Bay Packers, their main left tackle, David Bakhtiari, he's out for the rest of the playoffs, rest of the season. So that's huge because with Aaron Donald on that line, I'm just going to say Donald. I can't say Aaron for both of them. It's confusing me. With Donald on that line, honestly, I would take him out of D end and put him at right end and let him crush the backup tackle, because for a backup to have to start for the first time in the playoffs, it's going to be massive. It's going to be a huge hit going to go up against a Defensive Player of the Year. But the Rams quarterback Jared Goff, he broke his thumb. He had to have stitches, so he played an okay game last week. Their running back did it all for them, Cam Akers. I heard a reporter say Sam Akers. I think his name is spelled with a C, though. So maybe it is Sam Akers. I've never seen that before. But, yeah, I mean, for that game, there's not really many storylines besides Aaron Rodgers. It's Green Bay versus the Rams. It's really Aaron Rodgers. If he can do it, which he's projected to go to the Super Bowl, I want to see Rodgers versus Brady, honestly. The real GOAT, or the ring GOAT for 6 rings versus the most talented. Like the GOAT versus the GOAT. I want to see that. They did have a game earlier this year where Aaron Rodgers sucked. They got blown out badly, but we'll see how that turns out. And then I think I covered all the. So the NFC games are the Green Bay Packers versus. I think there's 2-2 this week. It's Green Bay Packers versus the Rams, and then it's the Tampa Bay Bucks versus New Orleans Saints. And then on the AFC side, it's going to be the Browns versus the Chiefs, which I didn't cover yet, so we'll talk about that. And it's going to be the Ravens versus the Bills. Ravens versus Bills we covered. But Browns versus Chiefs. There's a lot of storylines on this one, only because the Browns is the Browns, is what Juju said. And they ended up getting smacked up. The Steelers, shout out to all the Steelers fans. You guys are sitting at home right with us, the Eagles fans. Little in-state rivalry with Pennsylvania. So, with the Browns, I mean, I think that the stories with the Chiefs are obvious. We'll go over them, but I mean, I think they're obvious. But the Browns, they They were obviously supposed to lose. They went up against their divisional rivals last week, the Steelers. For those that don't know, if you're in the same division as a team, you have to go against them twice every year during the regular season. So the Browns had already gone up against them twice. They had just lost in Week 17, or rather, they had just won in Week 17, but not by any type of huge margin. And the Steelers, the caveat to that is the Steelers were resting people. They were resting their starters. Did I say the Cavs? I think I got distracted. The Steelers were resting their starters, and the Browns only barely scraped a win. So going into the playoff game, all the analysis and all the sportscasters were saying that the Steelers were definitely going to win. They had Big Ben Roethlisberger on the bench. They had their starting wide receivers on the bench. So bring them in, and obviously the Browns should get smacked up, right? But it was the complete opposite. I didn't watch that game. I just looked at the stats, and I remember I looked up one time, like, just to check, like, oh, I wonder how that game was going. And the Browns were up 28-0 in the first quarter. And I think ultimately the Steelers did end up coming back a little bit, but they couldn't come back enough to get the win. So the Browns were underdogs, and no pun intended, the Cleveland Browns mascot is a dog. Their name is the Dog Pound, so they were underdogs. But besides that, I mean, no one's really they're underdogs again, and that's truly who they are. That itself is the big storyline. The Browns are used to being 0-16. Since the year, I believe, 2004, they've had like 17 different quarterbacks. So they're used to being the underdog, and they still are. They're trying to change their underdog story to a come up story. Odell Beckham is hurt for them. Their second main wide receiver, Jarvis Landry, has stepped it up a lot, and we'll see how they turn out. Baker Mayfield over the last 2 years has grown exponentially. He has the rookie record for most touchdowns ever. I think that got broken by Herbert this year. Justin Herbert out in Los Angeles. But at the time, Mayfield's his projections were high, and the expectations of him were really high. Everyone was saying that he was going to be a bust, but they kept switching coaching staffs on him. So now that the Browns finally have a good coach, Kevin Stefanski, we're going to see what happens. We'll see if the Browns can come up on top. But they're underdogs to Big Mahomes in the reigning Super Bowl champion. So if there was ever a time to be an underdog, I mean, this wouldn't be it's two sides of a coin. I mean, if you can come out on top versus the Super Bowl reigning champions, you'll obviously be projected to win the whole thing. But at the same time, you probably don't have any. The public themselves don't have any expectations of you, because you're going up against Mahomes, Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, all the Chiefs, who are an unstoppable force right now. And as of late, I will admit the Chiefs haven't really played their best football. But to me, and a lot of people have been making this comparison, to me they're playing like the 2015, 2016, 2017 Warriors. The Warriors were, during the regular season, would play boring basketball, and then they would turn it up in the playoffs. I feel like the Chiefs are, and this may be their detriment in the playoffs. They might not be able to do these insurmountable comebacks or these miraculous comebacks that Mahomes is able to do. But I feel like the Chiefs just play as hard as their opponent does. I've seen the Chiefs, the Chiefs went up against the Falcons, and the Falcons are garbage this year, and they only scored 17 points. Like, the score was really close. It was like 17-13. All the Chiefs games have been close this year, but I don't think that's an indictment on whether they're good or bad. I just think they're playing safe rather than go out and blow everyone out and get teammates hurt and I don't even think they're doing it consciously. I think that they're just like, they're down in the third or fourth quarter, and they go, oh crap, you guys know we should actually play now, right? And they get serious, and they they can score 21 points in 5 minutes. So to me, that's why, I mean, I'm rooting for them to go to the Super Bowl. I have them as winning the Super Bowl. I can't imagine a world in which they don't, unless the only two people I can see taking them down would be Tom Brady in the Bucs, or Aaron Rodgers in the Packers. Tom Brady, I mean, like I said earlier, that just speaks for itself. He's very resilient, and he has his 6 rings. So you literally can't ever like count Tom Brady out. It just doesn't matter whether he's on the Patriots or on a college team. It doesn't matter where he's playing. He has a chance to win. So I think if he gets to the Super Bowl, then that's going to be a crazy match. But same thing for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes are basically the same player. They just have 2 different names. So people keep comparing them over and over and over, and they're saying Mahomes is a little better than Rodgers. But I don't know. I don't think it's a fair comparison yet, because Aaron Rodgers had to sit behind Brett Favre for 3, almost 4 years. He didn't get his first start until he was about to be 26 years old, and Mahomes has been the starting quarterback since he was 23. He has an MVP and a Super Bowl ring before he even turned 25. Before Rodgers even got the chance to start a game. So I don't think it's really a fair comparison. But I mean, you can obviously comparing their talent and their skills. They do play very, very similar, and they're also both sponsored by State Farm. They have commercials together. But even though they interact with each other, if you watch interviews with Aaron Rodgers, it does seem that he takes it a little personal. He's very competitive, so you would imagine he does, but he kind of takes it as a slight to him. Because anything Mahomes does, people say, that's the first time anyone has ever done that. He's done like no-look passes in real games, and everyone gives him the credit for that. But Rodgers has said on camera, like, yo, I've been doing that for years. Me, Matt Stafford, there's tons of quarterbacks who have been doing that for years. So you can kind of hear a little salt in his voice about it. But, I mean, those are the storylines for the NFL this week. If I was to project, like if I was to give my opinions on it, I think that the Chiefs will end up winning. They'll probably be losing at halftime like they always do. They'll probably be down by like 14 points or something. Mahomes will come back in the second half, and they'll win by like 30. I think the Ravens versus Bills is going to be a good game. I actually have no idea who's going to win that game. That game is probably going to come down to a field goal, and it probably is going to come down to who gets the ball first, and then who gets it at halftime. If I had to guess who makes the most mistakes, I guess, versus Jackson and Allen, Bills will probably come out on top. Probably. I think the Bills will. I think the Bills will be up, or the Bills will be down. They'll go and score, and it'll be tied, and then it'll be the Ravens' ball. And if they win, they score. But I think Lamar will unfortunately turn the ball over, and there'll probably be like 2 minutes left, and then Josh Allen will go down and score, and they'll win by either a field goal or win by a touchdown, him and Stephon Diggs. So then that means the AFC Championship game will be Bills versus Chiefs. And then on the NFC side, I think Brady and the Bucs will end up beating the Saints and Drew Brees, because Drew Brees is just too hurt for me right now. They played a horrible game against the Bears last week, and the Bears, even though the Bears have an excellent defense, the Bears suck. So if you couldn't really beat the Bears that well, I don't see the Saints beating the Buccaneers. And then the Rams versus the Packers. since all the games are in Lambeau, that they're in Wisconsin, and it's cold as they literally call it the frozen tundra, and the Rams come from Los Angeles. I can't imagine the Rams going into Lambeau and winning. So the Green Bay are most likely going to win that game. So then the NFC will be Green Bay versus the Bucks. AFC will be Chiefs versus Bills. Those are both two excellent games as well. Probably Chiefs probably come out on top there, and then I have no idea who's going to come out on top. Packers versus Bucks. I truly have no idea. I hope that I mean they're old as dirt, but I hope that Rodgers and Brady have a showdown and they both have to throw for like 400 plus yards, and this final score is like 45-42 or something. That's like an ideal world. Let's just say Aaron Rodgers takes it. I really want to see Aaron Rodgers versus Mahomes because they were number 1 and 2 in the MVP race. And I have this theory that if you win MVP, that you probably won't win the Super Bowl, and that's backed by stats. Anytime someone wins MVP, they do not win the Super Bowl. Last year, Lamar won the MVP. He didn't win the Super Bowl. 2018, Mahomes wins the MVP. He didn't win the Super Bowl. I have no idea who won it in 2017. Was that Brady? Brady won the Super Bowl, won the MVP in 2017, I believe that was, because he was the oldest quarterback to ever do it. He won MVP 2017, and he lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. 2016 was Matt Ryan. He won the MVP. He lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. 2015, I believe, was Cam Newton. Cam Newton won the MVP. He loses the Super Bowl. It just goes on and on and on. Like, if you win MVP and you still make it to the Super Bowl, you probably don't win. I don't know why that is. It's kind of like the Madden curse. If you get on the cover of Madden, you end up getting hurt. I don't know why that is, but it's just the stats back it up. So I just want to see if Mahomes can actually beat Rodgers, and then I want to see if Rodgers can. I want to see if Rodgers can break this curse. But another thing, and like this is what I said earlier, it goes on to building legacies. It always like breaks my heart and hurts my feelings that people can't have perfect records, because we all look at Michael Jordan as the GOAT in basketball because he has a perfect 6-0 record. It always hurts me that people can't have a perfect record. Like, let's just say that if like Brady is the GOAT in the NFL or in football, and he doesn't have a perfect record. He has 6 rings. He went to the Super Bowl 9 times. He's 6-3, and he's won 6 times, lost 3 times, lost twice to the Giants, and lost once to the Eagles. But to use I want Mahomes to end up becoming the GOAT because his projections have him on that way. But it makes me sad that he has to like kill other people's legacies to do that. If he goes to if the Chiefs end up versing the Packers and it's Aaron Rodgers versus Mahomes, Mahomes is 1-0 in the Super Bowl and Aaron Rodgers is 1-0 in the Super Bowl. So whoever loses that game, doesn't matter who loses it, they end up becoming 1-1, and now the chances of them ever just staying perfect are tainted and tarnished. And I don't know why, like that hurts my feelings, but it does. Because ultimately it doesn't ruin your legacy. That's a bit dramatic, but it definitely tarnishes it, because that's how we look at it. That's how we look at the GOAT conversation. When you went to the big game, did you remain undefeated? In the NFL, it's a little bit different because it's a 52-man game opposed to basketball. Basketball is 11, 12. So it's easier for someone like Michael Jordan to take over the whole game. Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, they all have to rely on their defense as well. So if they aren't undefeated, it doesn't have to be their fault. Like Brady threw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl versus the Eagles. He did everything that he could, but the Eagles pulled out that Philly. I mean, they couldn't do anything about it. Shout out to the Dilly Dilly Philly Philly. Yeah, I went to that parade, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. And the Eagles have their own storylines and stuff going on. I have no idea what we're doing. I didn't do any research on it, but just looking back on what I know about sports, I can't even think of any other team that has won a Super Bowl in the last 2 or 3 years, or any type of championship, and then they explode the way that we have. I cannot think of it. The only other team that comes close to my mind is maybe the Warriors, because of injuries and because of trades. But I mean, maybe it's the same thing with the Eagles. We trusted in Carson. We trust, but Nick Foles was the one that got us to the Super Bowl, and then we ended up trading him. And then our whole offensive line has been getting hurt every year. Jason Peters has been hurt every year since 2018. But I don't know. We've exploded. We just fired our coach. We're proud. We have to pay Carson Wentz $20 million this year, so it's going to be hard to trade him. But we got to get him out of there. He said he's disgruntled and doesn't want to stay in Philly if he has to fight for the starting quarterback job. It'd be idiotic to trade Jalen Hurts. So one of them has to go. So Philly's got a lot of rebuilding to do. Like I just said, to switch to the other sport, basketball. Golden State has a lot of rebuilding to do, and they don't even have to rebuild their team. They just have to get their injuries right. I saw this one article, and I don't know how valid it is, or if anyone would even be able to do the numbers like that. I think this is more so anecdotal evidence versus like evidence with stats. But they said in 2017, after the 2017 season, after they had just won a championship, maybe it was 2018, it doesn't really matter which year, either one will make it relevant. They fired their athletic director, or they wouldn't extend the contract for their athletic director, or their injury director, or whoever it was. And everyone is saying that person alone was the reason that the Warriors were able to stay so healthy for so long. A lot of people forget this, but in Stephen Curry's early career, he was battling a really, really, really bad ankle injury. And then they ended up hiring this person, and then he hasn't been injured. He hasn't been injured since, up until that this person has now been fired. They now have said like that this one personal trainer, this one injury director, might be the sole reason that the Warriors were able to dominate for so long and not get injured, not get hurt. Because now that this person is gone, we've seen Kevin Durant got hurt, Klay Thompson's got hurt twice, Steph Curry has battled a lot of injuries. He broke his hand last year. He had ankle injuries. So there's always storylines to find inside every sport. And like I didn't get to talk about earlier, the elephant in the room, James Harden is now on the Brooklyn Nets. James Harden is going to set, not just him, he's not the first to do it, I don't want to blame him, but James Harden is going to set a crazy precedent for future NBA players. The NBA in general has given all the power to their players, and I don't know if it's good for business or bad for business. There's really no balance anywhere. If you try to give, in any sport, if you try to give a lot of the power to the owners, then the players get disgruntled. They don't really get the contracts they want. The CPAs don't really align. But now, and there's not really many sports where the owners don't have the power. In the NFL, the owners have all the power. In the Major League and the MLB, the owners have most of all the power. But even in the MLB, players are starting to lean towards having more so of the power. But in general, basketball is the only sport the professional sport that you can look at and go, yeah, all the players have all the power. You know they do. If a player wants to be traded, he literally just stops playing and he gets traded. In the NFL, it's such a large. The NFL, I guess, the best that they have is contract holdouts in the off season, but after a certain date, it's like June something, July, August. After they are mandated to come to practice, the people end up coming, and that's that. The longest holdout I saw, I think, was Alvin Kamara. He didn't come for like 3 or 4 days of mandatory practice, and then he came. James Harden, they were mandating him to come to games or come to practices. He just wouldn't go. Come for team meetings. He's like, I'm not going. Trade me. Same thing with Kyrie Irving is doing now. Even though he's not asking for a trade, Kyrie Irving is contractually obligated to play basketball games for the Brooklyn Nets. This last week, he's missed 3 games because of what he's calling personal reasons. He didn't even give them like I'm not going or anything. He's just using his sick days like he works for a 9 to 5. He's like, I'm just not coming today. I'm not feeling it. So the players in the NBA are definitely starting to rule, which sets a bad precedent for business, because now if someone loses a championship, or if their team isn't playing well, they're just going to go, well, I don't have to play, and they'll trade me. Even like, it makes contracts useless. James Harden still had 3 years left on his contract when he just got traded. Or maybe it was 2, whatever the years were. He had a contract. Contract mean you have to abide by these things or suffer these consequences. The contracts are useless because, same thing with Anthony Davis. And the Anthony Davis situation was a little different because he was about to become a free agent. So if you know someone's not going to re-sign with you, it makes more sense to trade them, because if you let them go to free agency and they choose, okay, I'm not going to re-sign with you, then you get nothing for them. But if you've spoken with them and they're like, hey, I'm not going to re-sign, it makes more sense to trade them and try to get assets. Even if you can only get 2 players or 1 player or just draft picks, it makes more sense to get +1 than 0. So the Anthony Davis thing was a little different, but he forced his hand too. He said, "Trade me to the Lakers," and then all the other teams that were offered up, like he was on at one point maybe going to Boston or going to the Sixers or going to Houston, and he said, "If you don't trade me to the Lakers, I just won't play." And he said that publicly. So now all the other teams that have stakes to try to trade for him, they're just going to pull back. If this player comes out publicly and says they're not going to play if I trade for them, then why would I trade for them? That gives the player and the team he wants to go to all the power, and it actually brings his value down. So whereas before you might have been able to trade and get more for him, like what I'm trying to say is, let's say that their value was at an A+. So you could have traded and got another star for them. Okay, I will only give you him if you give me another star. If they come out and say, I'm not playing for anyone but them, and if you don't trade me, I'm just going to sign with them anyway. Well, now your value, their value is like a C. They have the player and the team they want to go to have all the cards in their hand. They're like, okay, you can wait as long as you want, but I can keep denying all these trades you want to do until I see one I like, because I'm going to get this player regardless. I actually don't even have to do a trade with you because I'm going to get them regardless. So, James Harden did the same thing. James Harden was about to go to Philly, and he came out and said, if you trade me anywhere else, I'm not playing. He said, I'm not playing. So, that being said, at first, Houston was trying to do a trade with the Nets for at minimum Kyrie Irving, because they said, we can't just trade you James Harden and not get an A+ superstar value player back. But then when he said, if you trade me anywhere else, I'm not playing. And then he came out and said, I've done everything I can for Houston. This situation is not going to get any better, and it can't be fixed. Now his value is down even more. Whatever the Nets have to, even though there's still years left on Harden's contract at that point, it's really null and void. You don't want to keep a player like that in the locker room. It's just going to be fights, and it's going to make the team worse. You have to give that asset up. And his value, to be honest, becomes like a D or an F rather than an A, because now it's public knowledge that, okay, he doesn't want to play here. And if we try to trade him anywhere else, he's not going to play anyway. We have to go talk to the Brooklyn Nets. So they go and talk to the Brooklyn Nets, and they say, okay, we'll give you James Harden for Kyrie. And they go, no, we know we are the only people you can talk to. We don't have to give you anything that we don't want to. Take what we're offering you. And the Rockets at that point have to take whatever they offer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Or you either take it or you keep Harden and you keep the disgruntled Rockets, who are not doing hot at all right now. So I say all that to say there's going to be a weird precedent in the NBA coming forward, where players are just like, if I come out and say I don't play, I'll get what I want, and I don't have to play. And it's really going to be kind of like a diva thing. But as far as play goes and as far as teams go, if you just look back 3 or 4 years, all the teams in the NBA look completely different. Go back 4 years. Let's just go back 2016. Or I guess that would be 5 now. So let's go back 5 years to 2016. LeBron was on the Cavs. Durant was on the Thunder. Westbrook was on the Thunder. DeMarcus Cousins was if he wasn't on the Kings, he was probably on the Pelicans. Anthony Davis was on the Pelicans. James Harden was on the Rockets. Kyrie Irving was on the Cavs. He was on the Cavs then. And then he ended up going to Boston. Kemba Walker was still on the Hornets. If you just look, Kawhi Leonard was still on the Spurs. Just go back 5 years and look at where all your favorite players have gone to. I saw a meme yesterday that said Steph Curry is truly the only loyal player in the NBA because he hasn't gone anywhere since like 2010. I think he's one of the only players. Like Blake Griffin isn't on the Clippers anymore. Now he's on the Pistons. Chris Paul, he went from the New Orleans Hornets to the Los Angeles Clippers, to then he went to the Rockets. I think he was on the Thunder before the Rockets. If not the Rockets, then the Thunder. Now he's on the Suns. Like people, the new NBA is nothing like the old NBA. Players just up and leave very constantly. But I will admit that somewhat makes for better basketball. If everybody's doing it, you can't just let one person do it. We all need to do it to fight. If LeBron has Anthony Davis and Montrezl Harrell, who was the Sixth Man of the Year, and has Dennis Schroeder, who was runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year, I mean, what are we going to do to try to combat that? That's when Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers and goes against Paul George. That's when the Phoenix Suns go and get Chris Paul so that he can team up with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. That's like their own little big three. That's when Giannis tries to get Bojan Bogdanovic, even though that failed. He tries to team him up with Chris Middleton for its own big three. Now, the biggest of big threes, I'm going to call them dribble three, because that's all they're going to do is dribble the ball around. They're not going to play any defense. They're just going to try to score 130 a game and try to win that way. The Nets have probably the most dominant big three the NBA's ever seen. Like, people always talk about the Heat's big three, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. I mean, looking back, that was definitely, I mean, it was more of a big duo than a big three. Chris Bosh did his job, but it was nothing compared to this. It was nothing compared to this. Kyrie Irving could, on any given night, give you 30 points. Kevin Durant on any given night can give you 40. James Harden on any given night will give you 40. Like, how do you can't even explain this on paper. I guess the closest thing, and the only The only comparison and the closest thing is the 2017, 2016, 2017, 2018, excuse me, Warriors. No, it has to be 2016. No, 2016 is when LeBron won, so it was 2017 was the year after that. The Warriors have been relevant for so long. Steph and Clay by themselves, I mean Draymond as well. He did win Defensive Player of the Year, but Steph and Clay, 2015 and 2016. I don't ever want to hear people say Steph can't do it alone. He literally showed for 2 years he can do it alone. He won back-to-back MVP awards. He's probably I don't think he's going to win MVP this year, but he's going to be in MVP conversations this year. If he had help, I mean, like even just a little bit of help. It's just him right now averaging 30 points a game. He's the only one on his team. They tried to get Kelly Oubre to help him. Kelly Oubre just made his first shot the other day, and we're on like game 15 of the year. He's only made dunks up to this point. So there's a lot of storylines going in sports this year. Hopefully we get to see a Lakers versus first and foremost, we have to see a Lakers versus Clippers conference finals. That's what everyone wants to see. Kawhi went to the Los Angeles Clippers and said he was taking the crown from LeBron, and then he ends up blowing a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets last year. So, this is going to be a crazy season in general. Sports season, not just one sport, but sports season. It's about 8:21. I'll open it up for Q&A if there's any questions or anything. If not, I'll end this Friday show early and let everybody get to it. Let's have a beautiful weekend. Any questions? All right, if there's no questions, like I said, I'll let everybody go. I am hoping to see some beautiful football this weekend. Once again, shout out to my baby girl. She's not my youngest sister, but my oldest baby, my younger sister. It's her birthday today, turning 15 on the 15th. Show her some love, y'all. And we out of here. Happy Friday, and I'll see y'all on Monday. Peace.